Hey everyone, welcome back to Wisdom Wednesday. Michaela here, your co-host to Dr. FineGrit. I believe we are on episode 23, Pumpkin Patch, and I think all of you guys are ready to be carving pumpkins out there soon. Halloween's coming up. Dr. FineGrit, I'm so happy to be back on the show with you. How have you been?
Yeah, it's been, well, it's good to have you back, Michaela. It's been a long while, and you're just back in time for the pumpkin patch episode. So I'm very excited to see carving of pumpkins. And yeah, good to have you back. We missed you. So here we are. So
thank you.
Yeah. But so what we cover today is kind of the artwork trend. We get a lot of questions on Corel, Adobe, S3 software, but the other ingredient to this process is the printer method, right? What printer to buy, what to look for, what your settings should be at, how to test your artwork to make sure it's adequate for the process. So we're going to cover the basics in that today. And again, any questions afterwards, we'll go through that. But the one thing I want to encourage is there is a lot more information on laser versus inkjet printers. I got many documents. I don't have enough time to throw those slides in on this. But if you have any questions on laser printers versus inkjet, make sure you message me or send a note, and I'll email you all the information you need. Okay. So what we're going to cover a little bit differently today, we're going to go through the live portion right off the bat, cover some Corel tips, how to get a darker print, and also the printer that I recommend at the moment. Printers do change, so we'll cover that a little bit too. So all that and more. So
all right, great. Well, yeah, let's switch over to the video, and we'll show you.
Actually, we're going to cover.
Oh, I'm sorry, Darren.
No, that's okay, Michaela. I'll give you a mulligan there.
Just getting back in the swing of things. I'm not used to it.
Yeah, you're doing fine. So anyway, so here I have a slogan on my screen right now. I think you should be seeing my screen by now. Blast of confidence, right? That's my slogan. I like to mention that a lot because you really need to have that, especially when you're doing high-end professional items. So here we are. So you go to File, Print. All right. I'm in Corel. You can be in Adobe or S3. I do have a 1430 on my desk presently. However, this model has been discontinued. So this setting system is the same you would use for the P400, the P600, the P700, 1430, 1400, any of the Epson line. You'd use the same property system. So we're going to go to Preferences. And what you'll find here is a couple adjustments. So initially when you have your default, it'll say text. So you switch that to best photo. Then you go to your next system, which is make sure your layout's properly done. But you'll see here the type of paper. That's the most critical step to getting the most dense print. What you'll see in this description, and this is why I emphasize glossy, because glossy is your description you're going to use with HP, Canon, Lexmark, any other printer on the market. Look for a setting that says glossy. It might have a brochure in front of it. If it's an HP model, it might say premium in front of it. It might say ultra. There's a number of ways, but the key ingredient is glossy. Okay, so Glossy. So that's your type of paper you're going to use, because that's the transparency material that we supply. It's called AccuBlack. And the next thing you're going to look for is the high speed option. That's going to be a default because the printers are set up to print fast, but low quality because they don't know what you're doing. So we need to print higher quality black ink or black toner. So what you're going to do is select, or deselect rather, high speed. So the high speed is deselected. So you're going to print slower. However, it's going to be more dense. It's going to be a better result. And that's pretty much it. I know sometimes people go to color controls and you can find like your contrast. You can go all the way to plus 25, your brightness, keep it where it is. Saturation, plus 25. You can do that. I don't find a whole lot of difference in the density, and maybe a small percentage. So it does help to increase that. The other part I do is the colors. And that's actually more critical, especially if you have a system where it's cyan, magenta, and yellow ink you're using. Because here at Connex, we have an all black cartridge kit for the Epson line of printers. So it doesn't matter. But if you have a colored cartridge in there, it's good to adjust these numbers. So you take out your cyan, you take out your magenta, you take out your yellow. Reduce the amount. It's going to still use a small amount of ink. And the ink, they do that because they don't want you to dry out an inkhead. Because if you don't use it for a long period, they dry out. So you have to use a small amount of color. However, you can reduce it like I've shown you here. So that's the settings you would use with the Epson printer. So it's very simple. Again, glossy, adjust your color levels, maybe a little bit if you have colored ink. So that's pretty much it. Now, if you have questions on a specific model, just message me again. A lot of times, too, they have settings online on forums. I read on those quite a bit. So the other one I wanted to show you is this. And Corel has a default. Okay, not only Epson, these other companies, Corel. So their default is under Tools, Color Management, Default. And what this has is a check mark for map gray to CMYK black. So when that box is selected, even though your image is pure black on your screen, when it prints, it's going to print gray because you're telling it to go to gray. So first thing you do when you get a Corel software program, whether it's an upgrade or a new software program, is hit Preserve Pure Black and hit OK. So that's going to retain the black throughout your image when you print. Okay, so even though it says 100% black, it'll print gray unless you find that box in Corel. Now, that's not in Adobe. It's not in S3. It's only in Corel. All right. So those are a few tips on my tip of the week live. And we'll get back to the video now and do a question and answer afterwards. The question and answers can be geared towards Corel questions as well, and Adobe a little bit on that, and other printers on the market. I'd like to hear questions on that. So we'll go to the video now and question and answer afterwards. All right, so now we did our live portion with the printing. We're going to cover the different material with our Rapid Mask film. Since the inkjet is the one I recommend the most because it gives you the best detail capability, the better results for production work, I'm going to use this in my photo tool. All right, we're using also Rapid Mask 4mm high-tack material, and we're going to show you a variety of ways to double your density with the laser jet material. We're also going to show you a tool up in my printing lab. It's called a discometer. So you're going to see what I look at when you send me artwork, so I can tell you if that artwork's going to work or not, or if you need to double your density or make it slightly better to give you better high detail results. So that's something I do a lot for my customers. So if you do have prints that you want me to read, send those over to me. I'd be glad to work with you on that. The other part of it is I'm going to put Rapid Mask high-tack on a few materials. I found this glass growler. So I'm going to put a nice logo kind of themed to October here. Okay, so I'm going to put that mask on the glass growler and sand carve it. I'm going to do a beer can glass with the other one. So those are the two items I'll be sandblasting today with Rapid Mask high-tack material, and show you the printing methods and the discometer. So stay tuned for that. This is AccuBlack inkjet material. We make also AccuArt3 and the whole Accu family of film. The way you load the film is you have a emulsion side and non-emulsion side. The way to tell the difference is the emulsion side is textured. So you can feel it with your thumb. It's got a coating on the one side, and the other side is just mylar. It's very slippery. Okay, that's one way to tell. The other ways to tell are either the Sharpie trick, where you can just put a little line. This is a water-based marker. It's going to be water-based because it's water-based emulsion.
You dab that in, and then you doesn't smear. Okay, we go to the other side and draw another line. Okay, you let that sit for hours, and it's still gonna be wet because it's not absorbing into the film. So if I take it, I can rub it right off. Okay, so that's another trick. The other way you can tell what side to print on is the kind of shape. If you look at this film, when it comes in sheets or even on a roll, the inside of the bowl, you look at it, it's got a little bit of a lip. The inside is the side you print on. Okay, so you put the ink inside the bowl. That's the way I kind of describe it. Okay, so that's a number of ways to do it. Some people kind of wet their finger with some water and dab it. That leaves a fingerprint mark on the emulsion side as well. So there's a variety of ways to do it. It's also sticky when you wet your finger on the emulsion side. But the simplest way, again, is usually the visual for me, is the inside of the curl or feel. All right. When you load it in your printer, if it's a top feed, you put it with the emulsion side facing you. And if it's a bottom feed, then it's the emulsion side face down. So here in this case, it's emulsion side facing me. That's how you load the printer with AccuBlack. All right, so here we have the PFX transparency material. I use an HP LaserJet printer in this case. If you look at it, the density's rather well with an HP, but let's say you had a Brother or a Lexmark printer, this dark is going to be kind of gray, or maybe there's some really light lines in there, cloudy. Doesn't look very well. So here's a little trick to double the density. All right, so what you do is you put your film on a clipboard, and here's the toner enhancement spray that we offer. Okay, it's called Casey's Ultra Black. It dries instantly. So once I spray that toner, again, it's a toner side, not the non-toner. So you don't print the back side, you print the side you print it on. Okay, so you're gonna double the density. So here I'm gonna spray it. Turn the fan on here because it is an aerosol spray. You can see it darken right there. One little spray process is all you need to do. If you overload it with too much spray, it'll start to kind of swell, kind of bleed a little bit. One little coat is going to be all you need. So right now I doubled the density. I'm going to let that dry for a few minutes. I can run a second coat if needed for even a slightly better density, but in most cases, one coat is plenty for what you're going to be doing here. So working remotely today, I'm working in the printing lab, and here we have a print going with our Epson 7270 printer. The nice thing about this printer is not only is it large format, where you can do large rolls, 44-inch, 24, and so forth. It also prints pretty quick. One of the faster inkjets on the market. The other advantage is you can use bigger core film. So rather than a 2-inch core, you can use a 3-inch core, which means the film comes off the spool a little better, doesn't tangle, doesn't jam. Okay, so the 7270, 3270, that whole series is a good line of Epson printers available. If you have any questions, you contact Iconics. All right, so here's the 3 transparencies that Iconics offers. I'm going to measure each one with the densometer here in our printing lab. First one I'll show you is the LaserJet printer with an HP, and this was printed on UV2 vellum. Comes in letter, legal, tabloid. We have it in sheets, 100 sheet packages, and reams, 500 sheets. So we get a lot of customers that buy it in bulk. Now, this is a standard print. I didn't change any settings. I used 600 DPI. I used draft paper. And this is the result I get. Very quick, but it's very muddy, right? Very gray. It's not very dense, so I can actually see the hand behind, which is a bad idea, right? So here's how I measure. First thing you do is the density minimum on our densometer, which is going to be 0.15. All right. So that means it's not completely transparent. Okay, so that's one of the negatives, I guess you could say, about UV2 vellum. It's not as transparent as other material. So next I'm going to show is the actual density max. Okay, so if I run that down, it's 0.64 on the density max. That is way below what you need to be for photoresist film. The higher the number, the better. Okay, I know people ask me all the time, what's the tolerance levels? Well, depends on the film, your application, what substrate you're doing, a lot of things to factor in. But the higher the number, the better. Okay, so that's all you really need to remember. So 0.64 is really low. This is garbage. Okay, you cannot use a transparency of that level. All right, so here's another UV2 vellum. This time I adjusted my settings to 1200 DPI. I also changed my paper setting to monochrome laser, which is black only. And now if I run that across, just by adjusting a few settings, now my density max is 1.18. So I almost doubled my density just by adjusting 2 levels in my property menu in the HP printers. So pretty cool, hey? So that's UV2 vellum. So 1.18 is about the best on that particular film. Now if I go to another film transparency for the HP printer, it's called PFX. It's a drafting film, it's coated, but it's coated with the same material on each side. So it doesn't matter what side you print on, all right? So now I'm going to check my density minimum. If you remember on the UV2 vellum, it was 0.15. This is a little bit more, okay? 0.26. However, now if I check the density maximum, I get about a 1.08, okay? So it's a good print. However, in some cases, you may want to double the density, which is I used the toner enhancement spray, which you spray it on the coated side, and it doubles the density. So now I'm going to run this across on my densometer, 1.51. Okay, so if I went, this was the same exact print, okay, same settings in the printer. I use 600 DPI, by the way. I used my worst settings. So 1.08 on PFX, and then I went to the toner enhancement spray, same 600 DPI print, transparency, 1.46. It's going to average out to about 1.5. I got a 1.57 in there. So again, the higher the number, the better. So I basically went from I added about a 0.5 difference, basically almost doubled the density by just using that toner enhancement spray. So that's the 2 transparencies for a laser printer. Now, when you work with any kind of detail work, the inkjet is going to give you the best density. And that's because when you look at laser printers, when you look at it zoomed in on a light, you can see lines in there. We call that clouding, where some areas are very dense, very light. So it's like a cloudy day, right? So it's going to be very inconsistent, okay, especially when you deal with little outlines on your lettering. If it's cloudy here, it's going to be cloudy inside those lines as well. So it's not a consistent print. And that's because it's powder. The powder is baking into the wood-based material. Okay, so that's going to leave, I call it like using like chocolate powder to make your chocolate milk instead of liquid chocolate milk. I mean, you have to stir a little bit more to get the powder to work, right? So the inkjet, on the other hand, when you print, it's a fluid material, so it levels out completely. So you don't get that inconsistency in density max. So whereas I had, quite a variance depending on which area it was on the laser film, inkjet's going to be very consistent. So if it's very solid fluid back here, it's going to be the same inside that little lettering area. All right. So here's my 2 examples here. So this was printed without any adjustments on my settings. So I used the worst just to show you what happens when you don't change your settings. You get lines going across. It's very low density, kind of a grayish look. It doesn't look pretty at all. Okay, it's obviously you'd look at that and go, that's not going to work in my process. Now, I use the fast print option. I use draft paper, the basic default settings in my printers. So if this happens to you, that's because your printer needs to be adjusted with your property menu. Okay, so if I run this across, my density minimum is 0.07, so it's very more transparent than your laser film. And the density max is 0.56. So this was right around that level with my laser film. So that's not going to work. That's way below what we recommend. All right. So that's going to be garbage. All right. So again, I just did the garbage ones to show you what happens when you don't adjust your inkjet settings. So here's another one I did. This one I did adjust a few settings. I did change it to all black grayscale. I did change it to a slow print. However, I didn't change my setting. I left it at plain paper. Okay, so if I run this across, my density max is 1.86. Okay, and that's okay. It's, the best laser jet's going to be around 1.7. That range. So you're better than a laser jet at this point. However, if you have a printer that can do better, why not? And the way you get it better is to adjust your printer setting to glossy. So just by going from the plain paper setting, which is 1.86, up to photo paper glossy, I went up to a 3.01. So just about doubled my density just by changing one setting in my settings. And you'll do the same thing with an HP or a Canon. You'll find that word glossy, Glossy. That's your key word. That's the one you're going to like. So once you change that, your density is going to be way, way better than it was before. And that's on any inkjet printer. So glossy, remember that word. So those are your different settings, different results you would get with the different transparency materials. So you got the garbage, you got the good, better, best in the inkjet material. You got the good, better, best in the vellum and the PFX. So here's what my final results are going to be. I'd recommend the inkjet AccuBlack with an Epson, HP, or Canon with the photo paper glossy option. Could be also called ultra premium, paper glossy, anything with glossy in that description. So that's what I recommend there. On the PFX, I do recommend the highest DPI of 1200 DPI. Use the monochrome laser transparency setting. And I do recommend the toner enhancement spray just to give you that ultimate detail. So these are the two I'd recommend for best results for detail, is the AccuBlack and the PFX drafting film with a toner enhancement spray. Here's the glass crawler with high-tack 4mm rapid mask dry processing film applied. I'm going to use the Crystal Glass Elite machine. I got a new nozzle set up that we're going to be using. And also it's 180 silicon carbide, same as always, because it's the FineGrit material. And I'm going to be blasting at 40 PSI today because I got a 4mm thick resist, 10 PSI per mil. So 40 PSI at 4 inches away is perfect. Now, if you want to go higher PSI, just move your nozzle further away. So here we go. That's one. So that aside, I'm going to do my beer can glass. I'm going to set this through the front arm hole because it fits nicely. So here, I'm going to put my hand right in there. And I'm going to stick my same air pressure. Now, I'm going to go a little bit further away so I can get a bigger spread of abrasive. there you have it. High detail with rapid mask, high tack. 180 grit abrasive, low higher pressure for the weight nozzle, front and back design, and a glass growler. So here's the two projects we did today with rapid mask, high tack, dry processing film. Front and back design. So here with the LED light underneath, it really makes the whole carving pop. So you can see the lettering, everything's got a nice white outline, nice even texture, looks really nice. Okay, so that's front and back with rapid mask high tack. Pretty simple to do. All right. Now, the one thing I noticed on this one, when I did it, and this will happen, down below, it's kind of bare. You know, it's got all these pumpkins living in space. So the artist mind I have, I go and look at that and go, this needs a little bit of a ground level. So what I did was the glass growlers, is I created a foggy backdrop. And what I did there was I blasted at 5 psi, held my nozzle at a 45-degree angle, and created a gradient. So you started out dark and then kind of gradient it back into the pumpkins. So it gives you like a frosted feel, but also it gives you that foggy look. It gives something that the pumpkins are settling on now instead of in space. So also on this one, you can see the carving depth. Okay, so if you look at a certain angle, you can really see the depth. I went close to a 1/4 inch depth in some areas. It is a glass growler. It's probably, I'm sorry, not 1/4 inch. I meant 1/8. It's 1/4 inch thick growler. So I go to 1/8 of an inch depth. So that's what I did on this one. Okay, so there's an idea for you. Create like a 2-stage effect, a little bit of a shading technique, and deep carving all on one glass growler. And then don't forget to personalize it on the other side. So your customers can be very happy with their project. They got a nice carved look and their personalized monogram on the other side. So there you have it. There's the glass growler and the wrap on the beer can glass. And all right, so that's a wrap on the rapid mask high tack and the laser jet film and inkjet film. So detail capability is great with the inkjet material. So I think that's a good way to stop and leave this alone. All right. We'll transition now to next week, and it's going to be crystal barware. It's a line from Poland. It's called Krasno. It's lead-free crystal, and it's a high-end product. It's, you know, it's going to be a nice thing to show you where I'll carve each item here with a nice logo. And you're going to see the different technique I use on crystal, okay? And there are ways to tell the difference between glass and crystal with a couple of tricks too. So I'll explain all that next week too on the crystal line of barware from Iconics. And until then, have a blast and blast with confidence. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, that's those, Andy. Those are good ones. Printer model.
All right, that was a great segment there. I really loved those pieces that you ended up carving, Darren. I like the way that you put that little fog underneath the pumpkins. That's very smart.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I do like the fog underneath. You know, it gives it a good, unique piece. And
absolutely,
yeah, Halloween's a great time too. Right?
I know that you have carved some pumpkins in the past too with with our tail blasters.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, actually, we did a real pumpkin. We put our film on and sand carved it. Didn't go deep because we didn't want to create a mess, but we just got the orange skin off to get to the white layer, and yeah, worked out okay. Get a little careful when you do pumpkins because they blast. If you go too deep, you're going to create seeds in your system. So
yeah,
don't want.
We're not liable for vegetable guts being inside your cabinet. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun
before
project.
we jump into some questions, did you have any final tips after kind of rewatching that and things that you might want to shout out to our viewers here?
Yeah. The big thing with printers is they change often. Model numbers, every 2 months, 6 months, they just change model numbers for whatever reason. The properties that I showed in the live portion remain the same because they don't change the software. So I would stick to those numbers we talked about. But people always ask me, what model number do you recommend? Right now, Epson's in a transition period. They've introduced new models in the market that we love. It's got the right ink base, photographic dye based, all this good stuff. We're loving it. Then they discontinue the product, and we have no control over that. So what we do is find other models that our customers can use. And I find that the Canon Pixma series is really doing well. I recommend the IX 6820 right now. But any Canon Pixma is going to give you good results. As long as you use the right properties, like glossy paper, slow print that we talked about. The HP Pro Series is a good model as well. And again, it comes down to what's available currently on the market. I generally do get people that call me from the Office Max or Best Buy and say, hey, what printer do you recommend? And, how do I know which one to look for? So I talk to people when they're shopping. But also I do recommend people printing in vellum or film into the facility and have, if they're able to, have them print a sheet right in front of you before you buy it. I used to do that a lot when I traveled teaching courses, so because I do it all over the country, all over the world. So I had to test printers on the go sometimes. So yeah, that's an option too. Otherwise, just give us a call and we'll walk you through the settings on your printer density menu. Excuse me. And like I said, it's always best to call when you get a new printer so we can go things over with you. So
sure, that's some great suggestions there. I've actually never thought about having a place like Office Max actually print out a piece of paper for me right there in the store. But I'm going to remember that the next time I'm printer shopping.
Yeah.
Well, I actually do have some questions of my own that I was kind of thinking of while we were watching the show there.
Sure.
So maybe we would just want to go through those while we're waiting for some other viewers to jump in here. First and foremost, Darren, as we love to have this joke every Wednesday, but what day is it?
I forgot. What day is it?
Hump day.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need a camel walking around our office here soon. Maybe you could dress up for that as Halloween. For
camel.
Halloween. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Let's do that. We'll get over this hump here.
Yes, we sure need to. So I was watching the part where you were up in the printer lab and you were walking through the bigger, large format printers, and you mentioned core sizes, and it kind of got me thinking: are there other core sizes out there besides 2 and 3 inch, or is that just standard across the board?
I think it's pretty much standard across the board. 2 inches, your traditional core. Some are plastic, some are cardboard, but they're always going to be 2 inch, from what I understand. We do make a 3 inch core for the quick, very fast print Epsons on the market. That way you don't get the bogging and you get a faster print. So I'm not sure if anybody that does a 3 inch core other than Iconics, but yeah, 2 inches traditional.
Okay, cool. Another thing, you were working with the densometer. Mm-hmm. I thought that tool looked super cool. I've actually never used one before, but I'm kind of curious. Where can somebody find a densometer, and are they really an affordable option, or do people really need them?
Not at all. It's a thing that's good for Iconics to have because we get customers send us artwork and we can check it and give them recommendations. I would not recommend buying one. I've had companies over the years, actually, say I need to buy one. I say no, because they're going to start, I think, around $2,000 a piece. They're not cheap devices. And it's probably a supply and demand kind of thing. Not a whole lot of people need them. So that's probably why they're so high. But I don't recommend it because if you use the right property menu that we recommend and the right printer by calling us or get the right model, there's no need to have a densometer because the print's going to be the same at your house, your business is the same as here. So there's no reason to, invest in a densometer. So yeah, just if you have questions though on your artwork, maybe you want to speed up your washout time on your developing film. Maybe you want better detail. And, in that case, send me the artwork and I can measure it for you and see if it's within spec. And as I discussed in the video, there are many ways to adjust that density. Sometimes it might be on the go depending on the printer model. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. That's a really nice offer that you're throwing out there. So, here I'll throw out a question here that's coming in.
Oh yeah.
Andy Hermatka, glad that you're watching. Andy would like to know, what are your thoughts on aftermarket ink? That's a really good question.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, the OEM inks, they're from Epson, right? They're cyan, magenta, yellow, black. Now, when you refill it, you can't really, they're disposable. You throw it away, put a new one in, right? Each color cartridge has its own chip. So yellow has a chip, the or magenta has a chip. So you can't interchange. So refilling them is not going to work for OEM ink. So the aftermarket ink that Andy's talking about is like when you take a cartridge and take it to Bubble Jet or some company that does refills, and they'll fill it for you. Problem with that, since not OEM, you have no idea what is in the ink. It could be a different base. It could be a pigment diluted base. It could be photographic dye. You really don't know what you're getting until you start printing and create a mess in some cases. So it's always good to give us a call ahead of time again to get a reliable source for aftermarket ink. Like, for example, I mentioned the Iconics Imaging Black Max. That's an all black cartridge kit that we sell for the Epson line of printers, the P series, the 1430, 1400 series, and the T 3270 in that series. We sell black cartridges. So we fill each yellow, magenta with black ink. So we're, it's color coded with a chip that says it's yellow, but it's actually black ink in there. So our ink is measured. We do measure the density, make sure it's adequate, make sure it's not going to give you any trouble in your developing process. So yeah, again, just look at your reliable source. It might sell you diluted ink, and yeah, it's always, and you're gonna learn the hard way because you're gonna print something out and it's gonna look like a mess. So yeah, just call Iconics.
All right, good answer. Yeah, I know I've worked with aftermarket inks long before I realized what the difference is between genuine and aftermarket. But yeah. It's kind of the safest bet is to always go with genuine cartridges. But for us, I mean, we work with our manufacturers and whatnot. We make sure that these cartridges work for you and that your printers will read these black filled ink cartridges.
Yeah, and to add to that, I get companies that send me ink because they're trying to get our business, and we check them, and they're not the same density as our current ink. So there's something they're doing differently in their process. So that's why with the ink that we sell on the market, it's very reliable. I answered the question there, Michaela. I don't hear you.
Sorry, I had a hiccup there. I think my internet cut out. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Okay. All right. All right. So back to it. Sorry about that. So we got a question here from Peter. Peter would like to know, can you spray toner enhancement on vellum?
Yeah, I think I just answered that question, but I'll repeat it. Vellum, yes, absolutely. The trick here, though, is vellum doesn't pick up as much powder as PFX will. So the density is lower on vellum versus PFX to begin with. So if you put that toner enhancement spray on it, you're not going to get nearly the density as you would with PFX because of less powder impregnated in the material. So keep that in mind when you use toner spray.
Okay.
If there's nothing there, it's not going to darken it in some areas.
Sure.
So.
That might answer a question that I have too. So I was kind of wondering also, when one would use AccuBlack, you would never need to use the Casey's toner black enhancement spray, right? Because if you got the appropriate settings with AccuBlack, your density would be just fine. So you'd never need enhancement spray with that, right?
Not at all. Yeah, the inkjet is adjusted with your settings in your software. So there's no toner spray at all needed. With vellum, PFX, toner, yeah, you're going to need that toner enhancement spray at times to give it better density. There's no adjustments you can make in your software in that regard. But, inkjet's the way to go, if you can afford it. If you're looking at the model of printers side by side, $150 to $200 is a good range for the Canon and the HP, whether it's inkjet or laser. But you got to look at your consumable, your ink or your toner cost. But inkjet's going to be a much well-rounded process for you. You get better detail, better developing. But they all work. I obviously work with customers that use vellum, PFX, AccuBlack. Every printer you can imagine, from Brother to Lexmark. I get calls on those quite a bit. It's a little bit of a challenge, but yeah, any printer will work technically, but it's a process of getting there to the finish line. How many steps you have to take to get there. Okay.
Well, thanks for confirming that. Another question here from B Fantastic 4. What is the best type of artwork to use, vector or raster, and what is the difference? Good question.
Yeah, it kind of brings back the Corel side of things. I've taught Corel at my courses. And vector or raster, in the printer world, everything's printed in vector. Vector is going to be a sharp line. We call it lines, which is an outline, and a fill, which I call rivers and lakes a lot in all of my videos. But the vector is going to be a cleaner image. You can edit it a lot quicker. Raster is just a bitmap image. It's pixelated. It's ragged. In some cases, like when you scan in a black and white photo, it's going to be a raster image right at the bat. You can vectorize it. So the difference is, raster is little steps, little pixels, which are square in shape. So it's a scanned in image typically. And a vector is lines and fills. So if you take your pencil and draw an S without lifting up your pencil, that's a vector. All right. And a raster would be taking your pencil and going like this, little dots to create your S. So to me, I think if you just draw it out like this, it looks better, right, than dotting it. So vector is better. And most images you can vectorize in your software. So maybe that may be a video down the road.
Yeah, I like to, when I think of the pixelated raster version, I think of Minecraft all day long.
Oh, yeah.
without the kids and the hype about Minecraft.
I do that. I use a Lego analogy a lot too.
Yeah.
I would like stack Legos and say this is a raster image, and then I'll show a nice mold of an S. That's your vector. So there's a variety of ways to explain it, but yeah, the Minecraft is probably more suited to today's modern technology than Legos.
Right. Yeah, when people see this video 10 years down the road from now, it's going to be something different.
Yeah, that's right.
Another question here from Laura. Laura would like to know, I noticed you use the Crystal Blast Elite a lot when blasting. Is there a sand carver that you would recommend for a hobbyist or someone just getting into sand carving?
Great question, Laura. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I use the Elite because it's got the 180 FineGrit in there. But yeah, you can use other machines. The one that you're kind of referring to would be a small hobby, lightweight machine. That's our Crystal Blast Pioneer. The unit weighs about 180 pounds, separate from the dust collectors. So you can, carry it. If you can carry a human person down your steps, you can carry this machine down your steps. So yeah, it's easier to handle. It's got casters on it, so you can move it. I've heard some people put it in the back of their trailer and do work on site, like at Sturgis or certain events when they were happening. But yeah, the Pioneer is a good model for the areas where you have a small space, or maybe an area where you want to move it to a basement or upstairs area. So yeah, we might show some other machines on other episodes. But yeah, the Elite we use a lot because it's our go-to machine. We use it at trade shows. We use it in our seminars. It's just the cleanest, best machine on the market. We just kind of gravitate towards that and don't want to, go anywhere else. But yeah, that's a great question. And, if you have information that you want on the machine, just go to iconicsimaging.com, or better yet, give Iconics a call. Be happy to go through each machine in further detail with all of you.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're just tuning in this week for the first time, if you're looking into getting into sand carving, our best suggestion is just to contact us and get in touch with a rep here and figure out what machine is best suited for your needs. So I've got another couple of questions here on my list as well. Darren, personally, I am like a complete novice when it comes to printers. I always struggle when it comes to printing out artwork, and I get very intimidated by it. And some things that I've never really learned or understood the difference in is DPI. Can you explain what DPI is and what a higher number or lower number means, and which one is better?
Yeah, that's a great question. DPI is easy in inkjet. It's 1200, okay, or 2400. They don't have the DPIs that you would see with laser printers. Now, the DPI, what that refers to is the line, how many pixels. You heard LPI or PPI or DPI. And 600 is small little dots or pixels in that square inch area versus 1200. So when there's less dots in there, they're going to be spaced out more. Okay. So if you have a small space, 600 in here versus 1200, the 600 is going to be a bigger gap. So there's less detail. And there's going to be gaps when you print out the image on your vellum as well. So when you go to a printer market or store, you'll see that they'll have 1200 horizontal by 600 vertical. That means horizontal is 1200, or horizontal this way. I'm looking at my computer screen. Horizontal 1200 and then vertical 600. So if you could find one that's 1200 both directions, you get toner in every little spot on that transparency, like your inkjet would. So that's why when I get people that send me artwork from a vellum, from a laser printer, and I see a lot of clouds in there, a lot of gaps where toner should be, typically it's because of the DPI. They had 600 by 600, which is going to be a scattered type of toner. Kind of hits and explodes, so it's like a gradient, but it's white gaps. You'll see clouds everywhere if you print out a black page. It's very obvious. So 1200 by 1200 is the better way to go, but you're going to spend more. So that's kind of where it's good to call Iconics and find out what printer best is going to fit your needs. I generally don't recommend a higher DPI printer unless you're doing halftones, where those little dots matter. So, yeah, I think that helps a little bit. Maybe you're right, Michaela?
Yeah, absolutely. That helps me understand it more. when it comes down to maintaining whatever printer you have, how often should you be cleaning your printer and maintaining it? And then what kinds of moving pieces on your printer need to be regularly checked over and cleaned and maintained? Can you answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. The Epson printer line, it's got a maintenance tab. So you hit your maintenance tab, you go to head cleaning. You'll want to run that before you do any print jobs, especially if you haven't used the printer in several weeks, because those heads get a little dry without being used. So it's a manual process. Okay. That goes for Canon and HP as well. It's a head cleaning. You want to do a nozzle check as well. That way when you print it, you don't see lines in your print. Now, some of the other industrial printers like the T series from Epson, it's got an automatic cleaning cycle. So once you shut the printer off, it cleans. And when you turn it on, it cleans. So, you got to make sure you shut your printer off often with those printers. So you leave it on for a whole week, it's not going to clean itself. So there's a few things in there, but yeah, it's really easy. Just hit a tab and do a head cleaning if you haven't used it in a while.
Okay, great. I think we're starting to wind down here. Let's take this last question and we'll answer that, and then we'll wrap up the show here and talk about what we have in the upcoming weeks. Be Fantastic 4 has another question here. They want to know, what is the best type? Oh, I'm sorry. We already answered this. My bad. Well, I think that's it then for questions. I don't see any more here jumping out at us. So I guess we'll just start wrapping up episode 23 then. And next week we'll be doing episode 24, and that'll be kind of special. It'll be something a little different and a little fruity and citrusy.
Yeah, that's right.
So you'll have to stay tuned or tune in for that next week. We are going to start winding down on the live Q&As just for everyone out there watching, but please don't deter you from jumping in with some questions, and we will get back to you in the comments section, usually within the same day or within a couple of days after. So still keep asking us questions, but if you need immediate answers, don't hesitate to call Dr. FineGrit or shoot him an email. Darren, do you have any ending notes or anything on your mind that you want to tell everybody out there?
Yeah, like just next week, I'm looking forward to that. Crystal celebrations. So we'll have some decorations we've done or actually in the video, decanter, whiskey bottle, some other items. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, like Michaela said, there's some fruity ideas in there as well. So look forward to seeing all of you next week on Wisdom Wednesday. I'm just going to end it like I normally do. Blast of confidence and always have a blast.
All right. Well, you heard it, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for supporting Iconics. So please subscribe or check out our website at iconicsimaging.com. See you later.
Bye for now. See you next week.